Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Kelly, you are muted.
I'm not
How are you doing
anymore.
today? I don't know what happens, but my computer just likes to freeze up when I have like 80 windows open and 50 different devices that are all on the internet and the Wi-Fi. And so it's been a fun 5 minutes. How are you doing? Welcome to the show, everybody.
Hey, everybody. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. We have a great show today coming up. I've been working. Um, fabrication is a big part of the magic. You know, it's huge, and we definitely we all know about the people that maybe come and tell the stories and all that, but it can be a bit challenging to really know who actually builds this stuff, right? And it's not Walt Disney Imagineering, spoiler alert, building all these things. They have a series of vendors that come together and they produce these things, right? Go ahead, Kelly. Respond in some way.
They do. Like we have amazing vendors all across this world, and we happen to have on our show today a really, really great one of those vendors. And the company, they're going to tell us more about it. I'm very, very excited because I hadn't really known anything about this industry up until a year and a half ago. So now I'm like, I feel like I'm jumping in the deep end, and this is really, it's very exciting. So
All right. Well, just a quick note. Dave Hall had a bit of he wasn't able to make it today, so it's going to be the Kelly and Patrick show, and we do not have a guest this week either. There's a lot of things going on, and we decided to stream that process today, and so now it's very streamlined. Where I'm just going to go ahead and sign off, and Kelly's going to take over. No, it's gonna be fantastic. Of course, we have Rachel running the show from behind the scenes. I didn't tell her I was going to put so I'm looking forward to this. Let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to bring on Randi and Hart Johnson onto this live stream. How's it going?
Hello. It's going well, thank you. Excited to be here. Thank you very much.
So we've known each other for probably 6 or 7 years, ever since I was at Nickelodeon, and had a great we had a great relationship. And you've done a ton of stuff for fabrication for us, and so we really want to do a deep dive and hear your story. How does that sound to you guys?
Sounds great. We have quite a story to tell, so we're looking forward to it.
All right. Well, we'll throw it to you, and Kelly and myself might jump in, just ask questions, but please take us through it.
Well, thank you very much. So we've titled our presentation for today, "A Business with Character." I would also kind of do a subtitle on this as "You Never Know," and we'll kind of get into that as we walk through the presentation as well. So with that said, I'm going to move on to what we're going to talk about today. So we'll do a little introduction on Randi and I, and we'll give some examples of what we do. We'll talk about the story of TivoliToo. We will also do a little digression of sorts and talk about the Charles Schulz story, which is really it's a great story. It's actually a big part of what our business is today, and it has a lot of lessons in it. We're going to talk about who we are today as a company, and then we're going to show a lot of examples of our work so you can really get a sense of what we do. Talk about it, kind of how we position ourselves, our key selling points, and then some final thoughts, and then questions. You can ask questions along the way, but definitely at the end, we'll take as many questions as there are, and just keep walking through the presentation as best we can. So with that said, we'll start with our quick introduction. And this is one of those you never knows. And this is our introduction to TivoliToo. And here's a little picture. Sometimes when I talk about TivoliToo, I don't tell people this right off the bat. we talk about the company, and then sometimes we save this for the end. But I'll kind of give one of the secrets away up front, and that is TivoliToo was started by Randi Johnson, and the other person is Hart Johnson, and that's me speaking. And this is a picture of us. We're actually sister and brother. And you can see me there when I was little with my sister Randi, and then you can see a more recent shot of Randi and I. And I can tell you that growing up, with Randi being my older sister, sorry, Randi,
Okay.
we never would have imagined we would have worked together. You know, we had different interests. We got along very well, but we never would have imagined that we would be working together. So we'll tell a part of the story about how we came together to work together and what we do within TivoliToo. But that's just kind of a quick little introduction of who we have here today. Randi started the company. She's the owner. She does all the creative. She kind of overall runs the business. And I do the sales, the marketing, the project management, and more of the business side. And so we work together. We're definitely partners, and we have a wonderful team that we work with. So with that said, I'm going to move into some examples of what we do. And I'm going to start with some familiar characters. Here's some examples. We've done a lot of work for Rainforest Cafe. You're probably familiar with this.
In the day, yeah, in the day.
Yep, and then Peanuts. We've got a long history with Peanuts. That's why I'm going to tell the Charles Schultz story today. We've done many projects with the Peanuts characters. Nickelodeon, trade show theming, a lot of different things for Nickelodeon. We've also done amusement parks, cruise ships, so many different things for Nickelodeon with their characters. We've done cruise ship theming with some of the Dr. Seuss characters. We've also done retail Ronald McDonald statues. I'll tell you the story about Ronald McDonald and how we got to work with him, literally with him. And then here's some actually more recent work. It actually opened yesterday at the American Dream Mega Mall in New Jersey. It's an Angry Birds mini golf course, and we were fortunate enough to be able to do many of those characters for that golf course. We've done a lot of work with Target for different promotional purposes, and we've done some bronze sculptures for Target and for many other venues. So those are some of the characters we've worked with. This is a big ski through at Vail Resort in Colorado. This is a giant 20-foot hot air balloon entry feature for an amusement park. And this is a 24-foot submarine play feature that's got bells, whistles, lights, sound, video on the inside. And we created that. We also created a food truck for Driscoll's Berries, where we did a fruit topper topping and made it look like a picnic basket and did the graphics around the truck. But more impressive than this on some levels, and this was a really fun project, this Driscoll Berries food truck, we actually built, literally from scratch, a food truck that is an operational food truck at the Verizon corporate office in New Jersey. We built it, we fabricated it, we designed it, we fabricated it, and we built the entire thing. So whereas in the Driscoll example, we took an existing food truck and we just added the berries on the top and a few other themed elements to it. This, we literally built the whole thing. We designed it, we built it, we took it out to New Jersey. It was in 13 pieces. We put it all together, and it is operational. The people at the corporate office, that's what they order from. They have a full operational kitchen on the inside of this. And that is the reason we had to build it, because it had to be bigger than a traditional food truck, because it had to house all of the equipment it needed in order to create the menu that they wanted to for the corporate office. So that was a fun one. This is another kind of massive project. We did the painting on this. This was designed by an artist named Red Grooms. He did it in an 18-inch scale in cardboard with watercolors. And we literally had to transfer that into a 75-foot art sculpture, taking, you know, his mock-up. And we were fortunate enough to do the painting on this. We worked with a company, a very impressive company that we've done multiple projects with, called Unisystems, and they're also here. We're in Minnesota. We're based in Minnesota, and they knew about our painting capability, so we partnered on this. They did a lot of the structural work and the mechanics. This moves, and it has lights, and it shoots water, and this was at the Miami Marlins Stadium for many years. So anyway, those are some of the examples of what we've done. And now what I want to do, you can write this down. I don't think you all can tell me what you think, but this is kind of the story of TivoliToo. And I am going to start with a question, and you can all write down your answer. If you haven't looked at our website or you haven't kind of looked at the history of our company, this is a pretty cool question. How do you think the company that created all the examples that you just saw previously, how do you think it started and it became the company that it is today? So
Kelly, why don't you take a guess? Yeah, Kelly, do you want to take a guess?
Kelly might know. I don't know. She might have done the research. So I'll do the drum roll. And without further ado, I don't know how many of you just blindly would have guessed this, but the company that produced all of those things that I just showed, and many more that you'll see as I continue on the presentation, started this way. It started by a person named Randi Johnson. And this is her elementary school here in St. Paul, Minnesota. And she was always an artist. And ironically, this is her in, I believe, second or third grade with a foam sculpture. She did a 3-dimensional sculpture out of foam in an elementary school for one of her class projects. She was an artist. I mean, that was her passion. That was what she did. She then went to high school, and all through high school, she continued in art, any kind of art you could imagine. And she would go to different shows and different events selling her art, all different kinds of art, weaving, macrame, stained glass, drawings, just a variety of things. And so she was an entrepreneur at an early age. She also would enter many exhibits, and she made a lot of different things. Anyway, this is one of her weavings. I think it is from high school. So moving forward, she went to the University of Minnesota, and this is kind of going to give away the answer. This is really where it happened. She went to college for jewelry design. And the answer to the question is, TivoliToo started as Tivoli Jewelers, a custom design retail jewelry store. Started by Randi in 1980. So we just celebrated our 40-year anniversary. It started as a jewelry store. Originally, she had 2 partners. She was the designer and the sculptor. She had another sculptor and a repair person. Within 6 months of owning the business, the other 2 people did not want to own the business anymore. So Randi bought them out. Or actually, as Randi likes to say, Randi took on all the debt. Right, Randi?
Right?
There wasn't really anything to really to give at that point. But anyway, right. Randi took over the business. And what Tivoli Jewelers started as was a custom design jewelry store where they would sculpt, mold, and cast rings, bracelets, pendants, and earrings. And they would repair jewelry, and they would sell and source precious gems. So that's how it started. And then she moved to very little, it was an insurance company, just a little not even a house. It was a little building, and that became Tivoli Jewelers. She had a very small retail space, and when clients would come, she would borrow the jewelry that she had made for family and friends and put it in the case, because she didn't have a lot of money for inventory or to make things. And since everything was custom, she didn't carry a lot of jewelry. But she had a beautiful retail space, and she made beautiful jewelry. And it was one of a kind custom jewelry. And then she had an idea in 1985. And throughout this presentation, we're going to share with you some examples and turning points for the business. And this was probably one of the biggest ones. She decided she didn't want to just have a custom jewelry store. She decided that she had a really good idea and she wanted to try to move forward with it. And it was themed charm bracelets. And she came up with 35 different themes: at the movies, at the beach, Chinese takeout food to go, sports, vegetables, women's shoes, all these generic themes. And she created all these designs, and then she started sculpting the icons. And so she had this idea, and she had to find someone to help produce it and market it and sell it. And she found a company in New York through much networking and many different attempts. She found a company that could produce it and had a sales force, and they would go out. And so she had a line of charm bracelets in addition to her custom jewelry store. And the line, was relatively successful. And it was very creative, and it was a lot of fun. But probably the most significant turning point in the business was in 1987, 2 years later. And it was our father, our dad, Marvin Johnson, who said to Randi, it's the 50th anniversary of Monopoly, Parker Brothers. Maybe you should do a Monopoly charm bracelet and use all the icons from Monopoly and put it on a bracelet. And Randi thought, well, that's a great idea. And so she called Parker Brothers, 1987. And as Randi likes to say, she has good phone skills. And she was very, she wouldn't stop until she found the right person and someone that would listen to her. And several weeks later, she got somebody on the phone at Parker Brothers that was a high-level executive. And she said, I've been trying to contact somebody. I've told a lot of people about my idea, but I really think this would be a great thing. I'd love to do a Monopoly charm bracelet. The gentleman, who was at one of the highest levels of Parker Brothers at the time, said, I like your spirit. It sounds like a good idea. Could you send me a drawing of what you're talking about? And we'll see what we think of it. And Randi said, I'm actually going to send you a sample of a real bracelet, because that drawing wouldn't really do enough. So Randi took the time. She sculpted these little icons for Monopoly, created a bracelet, sent it to the gentleman, and he loved it. And this was 1987. And he said, I'm going to give you the license to the jewelry category for our Monopoly license, our Monopoly brand. And that was the start of a whole new direction and a whole new opportunity for Tivoli Jewelers. After she got Monopoly, she made several other calls saying, oh, I've got the license to Monopoly. And she got Popeye, she got Betty Boop, she called Mattel, and she got Barbie and did a Barbie bracelet. She contacted Warner Brothers and did several Warner Brothers bracelets with different characters. And she was able to contact Disney and start doing Disney. And Randi, how many charms did you do for Disney? Didn't you redesign and sculpt all of the charms?
Yeah, I
all
think
the
about 100 of
characters?
them. We did. We
Over
refreshed
100
them.
different characters. she created the charms for Disney. So now it's 1987 to 1990. And over that 3-year period, the business, she still had her jewelry store, but now she started doing themed jewelry. And she was doing stuff for, like I said, Warner Brothers and Disney, and she was creating all this jewelry. And you can see here some Peanuts characters. But the business really changed in 1990 when the woman that was in charge of creating the themed retail stores for Warner Brothers saw Randi's charm bracelet, this one right here, with some of the Warner Brothers characters on it. And this woman was in charge of creating all the new stores for Warner Brothers. And they were really creative stores. They were going to roll out 300 to 400 over the next 3 to 4 years. And she was trying to find product. So she called Randi because she loved this charm bracelet and thought the quality was great and the detail was great. And she said to Randi, I see you did a beautiful charm bracelet. Could you do other character merchandise? Could you do cookie jars, snow globes, picture frames, bobbleheads, belt buckles? And Randi said, of course I can, even though she hadn't done anything but jewelry. She had the skill and the talent, and she had the ability to find the right team to be able to create these things. And so a whole new business was born in 1990, and it was really collectibles and character merchandise. And here's some examples of some of the different pieces that she was able to create early on. So in 1991, the business was just taking off so huge that she decided she was going to become a model shop for the gift industry. And that beautiful retail space that you saw in the previous slide, a few slides back, she took down the wall, she took out the carpet, she took out the retail cases, she closed her jewelry store, and she became a model shop for the gift industry. She hired several sculptors, some in-house designers, and the business was transformed from a jewelry store into a model shop. And it became TivoliToo, a design and sculpting studio. So that's kind of the story of the first evolution. She moved into a beautiful new space in 1993 and had several sculptors, several designers, and she was doing all of this work for Disney, Warner Brothers, Peanuts, and other companies doing all this character merchandise. Then the next major transition in the business was 1996. The owners of Rainforest Cafe, who were from Minnesota, came to Randi and said, can you bring our animals to life? All they had was two-dimensional line art for their characters, but they knew Randi had worked with a lot of characters and had done three-dimensional characters. So they said, can you create our characters three-dimensionally? And that was a huge turning point in the business. In fact, in 1996 and 1997, she started making huge sculptures. And 1 year prior to this, she had not made anything larger than a cookie jar. So this is what we call a big leap. It was, as Randi said, kind of a calculated risk. I mean, if she felt like if she could sculpt something small, she could sculpt something big. She brought in people with expertise that knew how to do larger themed elements. And hence the transformation of TivoliToo from making smaller things into making bigger things. And in 1997, Randi created a 30-foot frog that up until about 2 weeks ago or about a month ago, literally was on the Rainforest Cafe roof in Chicago. They just took it down this year. Prior to a month ago, and even moving forward, I think this would be one of our testimonials to the quality, the durability, the longevity of what we make at Tivoli. This frog, you know, was on the rooftop in Chicago. It needed minimal touch-up from 1997 to 2020. And so, you know, going from a cookie jar to a 30-foot frog within a year or two was a huge transition for the business. At the same time, there was a venue at the Mall of America, which is close to where our studio and our shop is for Tivoli. And they were creating something called Underwater Adventure. And they asked Randi if she could create the characters and create a lot of the themed elements in that venue. So now, in addition to Rainforest Cafe, there was a venue and soon after multiple venues that started asking Randi and TivoliToo if they could make larger themed elements. And so that was a huge transition period. And so what was Little Stuff, or what was TivoliToo, and we described ourselves as a 3D design, development, and production company where we did really nothing bigger than 2 foot, you know, and probably not even bigger than a foot with that cookie jar. And we did licensed and private label hard goods and collectibles, figurines, ornaments, cookie jars, etc. Salt and pepper shakers, picture frames, mugs, jewelry. That was the business. That was what TivoliToo was. But then when Rainforest came and said, can you make our, you know, signs, and can you make characters for us, and can you do bigger themed elements, we had to create a new division. Randi had to create a new division. So Big Stuff was formed. So that's how we had to differentiate. So this is 1997, and we had to say we had a Little Stuff division and we had a Big Stuff division. And Big Stuff was really 4 foot to 60 foot for a long time. And I'm going to talk about how we've even gone bigger than that. But we did indoor and outdoor themed products. We did product in hard coat and we did product in soft coat. So we called it hard stuff and soft stuff. And then we said we can do custom stuff, we can do production stuff, we can do play stuff, and we can do other stuff. The talent of the team at TivoliToo allowed us as a company to go multiple directions, to work with a variety of industries and to do a variety of things. So this was really a transition point for the business. And it all started with Randi saying, sure, I can do that 30-foot frog in 1997. A few key dates after 1997 in the story of TivoliToo was in 2000. And I'm going to tell this story because it's a good segue into the next story I'm going to tell, which is the Charles Schultz story. But this story is about the city of St. Paul wanting to honor Charles Schultz for his 50 years of cartooning in the year 2000. And Charles Schultz was from St. Paul, for those of you that aren't aware of that. And of course, Charles Schultz was the creator of the Peanuts characters. Charles Schultz lived in St. Paul. He grew up in St. Paul and lived there for much of his life until he moved out in his later, years into California. But Charles Schultz really was rooted in St. Paul. So the mayor in the year 2000 wanted to honor Charles Schultz for his 50 years of cartooning. And so I will tell the story of how Randi and myself and TivoliToo became so close with Charles Schultz and with the Peanuts characters. I'll tell that story next. But the mayor of St. Paul knew that Randi had a very close relationship with Charles Schultz. They were very good friends. And so the mayor called Randi and said, we're forming a committee to honor Charles Schultz for his 50 years of cartooning because he's from St. Paul. Would you get on the committee? And Randi said, sure. So they had a meeting and they brainstormed ideas. And they said, how can we honor Charles Schultz for his 50 years of cartooning and do something special here in the city of St. Paul? So there were several ideas that were mentioned. And one of them was, why don't we do 6-foot Snoopy statues and have them painted and themed and decorated different ways and put them all around St. Paul to honor Charles Schulz, and as kind of a way to promote tourism and to promote artists. And for those of you that aren't familiar with statue events, in the 2000s, from 2000 to probably 2010, a lot of cities were doing these statue events. There were donkeys and elephants in Washington, D.C. There were cows in Chicago, and there were different themed characters or animals or different icons in many cities, and local artists painted them and themed them. So this was an idea that was brought forward by the committee. And Randi brought the idea forward for one reason. She was aware that one of Charles Schulz's projects that he really liked and he told Randi about was when Belle and a couple of his characters did a tour in Europe, and they had different designer clothes on. And so the idea, dressing up or painting or decorating Snoopy in different ways kind of was rooted in that idea as well. And it was also right when the cows came out in Chicago and statue events were becoming very popular. So the committee said to Randi, would you talk to Charles Schulz and see if he would allow us to create these Snoopy statues and put them around the city? And Randi said, sure, I'll give him a call. And this is quite a story because this was a Wednesday when they had the meeting. And Randi got off the phone, or Randi got out of the meeting. She went home and she called Charles Schulz, and his nickname was Sparky. So she called Sparky, and she said, Sparky, I'm calling because the city of St. Paul would like to honor you for your 50 years of cartooning and for what you've done, and from you being from St. Paul. And Charles Schulz said, actually, well, I'm not sure why they want to honor me. I'm not sure how much they liked me when I lived there. He kind of had a little bit of Charlie Brown in him. He was a wonderful, wonderful person, but he, sometimes, didn't really think that St. Paul loved him. And Randi said, well, St. Paul has come to know the wonderful person you are and all the contributions you've made, and they want to honor you for that. So Sparky said to Randi, if this is a project you're going to be involved in and you want to help support, then you can move forward on it. And Randi said, thank you very much. This will mean a lot to our city, and it's a great way to honor you. And so we're very excited. And I will go back to the committee and let them know that you've said we can do this. So Randi went back to the committee meeting on Friday and said he has given us, approval to move forward with this project. And they said, great, we're going to have to get moving on this right away. And so Randi called Charles Schulz back on Saturday and was going to talk to him about the project further, but he had already said it was approved. And unfortunately, and this is a really unbelievable part of the story, on that Sunday, Charles Schulz passed away. So if it was 3 or 4 days sooner or later, this project may never have happened. And what this project did for the city of St. Paul and what it did for TivoliToo was huge. And so this was another big kind of turning point in the company. One of the things this project did was it got TivoliToo into a process called multiple piece production, where we could make a custom sculpture, make a mold of it, and then use a casting process where we could do 10, 50, 100, and they would all come out, the same at a more cost-effective rate. And multiple piece production is still something we do a lot of today in our company. So I tell that story for multiple reasons, but 2000 was definitely another turning point in the company. It wasn't also a turning point for me in my life, because 2000 was the year I started working with Randi. So the history of TivoliToo up to this point was my sister's company. And I had a background in marketing. I got my MBA. I was in marketing. I was in brand management at Pillsbury and Land O'Lakes. I was in corporate America for 10 years. And then Randi's company was growing and changing. And so in 2000, once we got, and we also had a few other bigger projects, Randi said, could you come work with me and help run some of the business side? So I left corporate America in 2000 and came over to Tivoli at this point. Prior to that, you know, I had done a lot of side work with Randi on the business. So I was familiar with all the things that were going on. But now I was formally part of TivoliToo. So 2000 was a definite turning point for TivoliToo and for Randi and I as well. We had a lot of different things happen between 2000 and 2007, but another huge turning point for Tivoli, and I'll tell a quick story here. 2007, Nickelodeon Universe at the Mall of America. The Mall of America was going to create Nickelodeon Universe, and we tried all of our contacts we could to get into the Mall of America. We hadn't done a lot with the Mall of America. We hadn't done a lot of business there. But we had done all of the Rainforest Cafe projects with a company called PCL Construction. And Randi had created a very good relationship with the person that was head of the division for PCL Construction and head of the region. And so Randi continued to talk to this gentleman about trying to get Nickelodeon to come to Tivoli. We were literally only 10 minutes away from the mall. We wanted to get their team to come see what we did. And I haven't shown a lot of examples, but we had done a lot of work for Peanuts, for Disney, for Warner Brothers. We had done a lot of themed character work, but Nickelodeon wasn't familiar with us. So they really, for several months, didn't come to see our studio. And as the project kept getting closer and closer, we kept trying to get someone from Nickelodeon to come see our company and learn more about us. One afternoon, this gentleman named Don gave us a call, and he said, I have finally convinced the Nickelodeon team to come to your studio, and they're going to be there in 30 minutes. They have about 30 minutes. And we said, thank you so much. And so several people came. It was a team of about 5 people from Nickelodeon came in. They came to our studio, and we had several examples of characters in our office. And so they could tell we worked with characters, and they sat down and they listened to a quick presentation, and I wanted to be respectful of their time. So I said, I'm going to show you some examples. I'd like to take you through our shop. How much time do you have? And, you know, they said, well, you know, keep going. We'll let you know if it's getting to be too much. So we shared examples of our work. We talked about our work. They were listening. They were asking questions. We walked through our shop. We probably spent an hour and a half. It was a wonderful visit. At the door, the senior VP, he said to us, as you probably know, we begrudgingly came here today. We have resisted to come to your company because we do have another company that we work with that we feel is our theming company that we're happy with, and they're in Florida, and not sure we need another company. But having been here today, seeing all the examples that you've done, talking to you, seeing your team, watching your process, we hope we have a chance to work with you. We will keep you in mind. We don't know how the bid process will go for the Mall of America for Nickelodeon Universe, but we'll hope to be able to consider you. We were very impressed with what we saw today. And so we thought, well, you know, that went well. At least we hopefully will be considered. It took a long time to get them to come. They came. We were able to show them a lot of examples, and so we thought we had a shot at, you know, at least being considered. So Nickelodeon Universe in 2007 was moving forward. The Mall of America was moving forward with the project, and we were able to bid. And as it turned out, we were awarded probably about half of the themed elements for this venue. We got a lot of the work, and it was a huge project for our company. And I will say one thing that's been, because it really was a big turning point in our company's history. We worked very hard on this project, and we were at the grand opening at 2 a.m, putting all the finishing touches on everything. And our team was there doing the install. And this same senior VP who had been at our door of our shop probably about a year earlier, he pulled us to the side. It was 2 a.m. He said, "Randy and Hart, I'd like to talk to you." And we were a little nervous. We weren't sure, you know, what he was going to say. And he said, I'd like to tell you that I was so impressed with your team through this entire process. I'm so impressed with the quality of your work, the service level, everything you've done, that as long as I am involved in this, I believe that you're going to become our premier theming company and our go-to theming company for projects, you know, at least, you know, in the US. And this was in 2007. And I will say that Nickelodeon and the team there, I believe, and, you know, I'm not going to put you on the spot, Patrick, but we were so fortunate because they have taken us to so many different places. And it all was rooted in, I would say, just sticking with wanting to get that person to Tivoli just to see what we did. And it was time and time and time again trying to get them there. And we finally got them there. And it has led to a huge portion of business for our company for the past 13 or 14 years. And they've been true to their word, and we've done a lot of different things for Nickelodeon, and I will show you several examples as we move through the presentation. But I think that's an important story and an important lesson. And I hope as I'm telling these stories and sharing some of this information, you'll find lessons and learning and ways that maybe you can move forward to do things that will help you with your business or with your career. One of the areas Nickelodeon took us to was cruise ships. They wanted us to do a pool deck for a cruise ship. Well, we were able to do that project for Nickelodeon with Norwegian Cruise Line. Since that time, because of kind of that start on that cruise ship, we now work for Carnival Cruise Lines, Royal Caribbean, and other cruise lines. And we do mini golf courses on cruise ships. We do kids play areas on cruise ships. We do wet play areas on cruise ships. So again, you just never know what one project or one relationship or one client might do for your business and the directions they might take you. Another wonderful story from 2012, and this is a great one. You probably all heard how Walt Disney talks about it all started with a mouse. This story is, it all started with a squirrel. It all started with a squirrel for us, TivoliToo, in 2012. And here's the story. And it's timely because it was in 2011, in October 5th, the St. Louis Cardinals were playing the Philadelphia Phillies in the National League Division Series in Major League Baseball. And this is documented. You can actually Google this. A squirrel ran across the field. The story goes that it changed the luck of the St. Louis Cardinals. and it was their rally squirrel, and it was their lucky squirrel, and they went on to win the World Series in 2011. So how does that tie into TivoliToo? Well, we read an article, just a random article. We saw that this squirrel aligned with a children's hospital in St. Louis called Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital. The foundation, the executive director of the Children's Foundation for the hospital, had a relationship with the St. Louis Cardinals. And he called the Cardinals after the squirrel ran across the field. And he said, I'd like to print t-shirts and hats and merchandise to sell to benefit our children's hospital. The St. Louis Cardinals agreed, and I believe over $500,000 was raised through merchandise using the rally squirrel. We read the article, and it said that the Children's Hospital wanted to create a play area on their rooftop with some of the money that they raised through the merchandise. So we said, hey, we do play areas, and we also do characters. And we showed them some of the character work we had done. And we said we'd love to do like a greeter of the rally squirrel. Since the rally squirrel was really how you raised your money for your play area, it seems fitting that you would have the rally squirrel in your play area. And so they said, well, why don't you send an idea? Why don't you send something that you would do? And so we created this, what you see here on this slide. We created the rally squirrel with a little tree because they needed to cover a dome that was there in the play area. So we created this oversized tree play feature with kind of the rally squirrel as the greeter. So it's a photo op and it's a play feature. And the hospital just loved the idea. And the executive director of the foundation really loved the concept. And we worked with him closely on bringing this to life. In 2012, he said to us, you know, our hospital is very dated. We really could use some help with theming in our hospital. We really could use some help making it more child-friendly. We really could use some help making it a happier place. Would you do some renderings? Would you do some drawings on spec? Would you trust us that if I'm able to sell this to the president of the Children's Hospital, you guys will get some really nice work out of this, and you'll be able to help really redesign and recreate our entire hospital. Up until that time, we really hadn't done a lot of work with hospitals. We've done a few smaller things here or there, but this was a huge opportunity. And this was a turning point in our business. And I show this picture because this was the start of theming in children's hospitals. And this is the emergency of the Children's Hospital. This is the emergency center waiting room. And we created this wonderful, fun, inviting, welcoming design. And the president of the Children's Hospital, she loved it. And she said, can you have the people from TivoliToo come out? I want to talk to them. I have a vision, but I need to talk to them and understand if they can help me with my vision. So that's what the executive director said to us. So Randy and I flew out to St. Louis. We met with the president of the hospital, the executive director of the hospital. We met with their team, and they talked about how they really wanted to create a more child-friendly experience in their hospital, and could we help with that? And the president of the hospital walked us through the hospital, showing us each department and talking about the things she'd like to see differently and some of her ideas. And so we put together a proposal for the Children's Hospital, and it was a huge proposal, and it was the biggest proposal we had done to date. And we created a whole story called Rally, which was the rally squirrel. His name was Rally. Rally and friends everywhere under the sun. The logo of the Children's Hospital was a sun. And our concept was Rally would go to each different department in the Children's Hospital, Rally would find friends along the way, other characters. And each department would be a different theme. So we proposed that the emergency department would be in North Woods, as you see here. The cancer unit would be a underwater theme. The PICU would be a mountain theme, and so on and so on. And we are still working on portions of that hospital today, 7 years later, doing it area by area and doing a variety of different things. And this has become extremely rewarding because we've seen the difference it's made in the experience that the children have when they go to the children's hospitals. So this was definitely another turning point in our business. It makes a difference for not only the children, the families, and the staff and at the hospitals. And we've done other hospitals, which I'll share with you later as well. So this became kind of a whole new part of our business. And it all started with a squirrel. So that's the story of Children's Hospital theming in 2013. I fast forward to one of our most recent projects, which is the American Dream Mall in New Jersey, which we've worked closely with Nickelodeon on and Patrick on. This has been a massive, massive project. And pictured here is a slime streak, which is 125 feet long and 30 feet high. It was an incredible feat of not only theming, but engineering and structural work. And it just took into effect and into account so many aspects of what needed to be done to execute something like this. And this is our largest feature, 125 feet long and 30 feet high. And I share this with you because this started, again, with Nickelodeon coming in 2007 because of our persistence, because of the relationship we had with the person from PCL and his persistence and his belief in us and the work we did with him on Rainforest Cafe. So it's all intertwined. It's all tied together. And American Dream is owned by the same people as the Mall of America. So that made sense for us to be able to work on this project. So that shows you the story of TivoliToo. And now I'm going to share with you a really, really special story. Another story that has a lot of lessons in it. A lot of incredible steps along the way to the Charles Schulz story. And I'm going to start with a letter in 1989. As I mentioned, we have a long relationship with Charles Schulz, and it started in 1989. If you remember, I talked about the themed charm bracelets, how we were doing work for Monopoly and Disney and Warner Brothers and Mattel, and we doing character charm bracelets and character merchandise. So in 1989, Randi wrote a letter to Charles Schulz, and he lived in Santa Rosa. He lived in California. And she wrote a letter and sent it with an example of her charm bracelet and said, I'd love to do charm bracelets with the Peanuts characters. Here's an example of some of the other ones I'm doing. We'd love to do it with the Peanuts characters. And she got a call back and said, we'd like you to fly out here and meet with us to talk about your idea. And so Randi was very, very excited. And this is kind of a funny part of the story. So I was working at Pillsbury at the time in 1989 in marketing. And our parents didn't want Randi to fly to San Francisco and drive to Santa Rosa on her own. So they said, maybe I would go with. And I said, sure, I will go with. And so I didn't think a lot about it. I took a few days off work, and Randi and I flew to meet with Creative Associates, which is the creative arm of at that point in time Charles Schulz's business and the Peanuts brand. So we flew there. We drove up to their office, a very unassuming, small place. And we drove up, and there was a little yellow Mercedes that said WDSTK1 on the license plate. And Randy said, oh, you know, maybe Charles Schulz is going to be there today. You know, maybe he's actually here. And we didn't really think much of it. We hadn't really thought we would have a chance to meet him or anything, but we thought, oh, maybe he's there. Maybe we will. So we walked into the office and we introduced ourselves, and they said, you can have a seat. And I stepped back for a minute because I talk about the second letter Randy sent in 1989. And it said, Dear Mr. Schulz, I am coming to your offices to meet, to discuss my charm bracelets and character merchandise and jewelry. Or really at that time, it was just character jewelry. I'm from St. Paul. I've always admired you. The letter said, I grew up as a huge fan of the Peanuts comic strip. I've always admired you. I'm an artist and I'm a creative person from St. Paul, just like you're an artist and you're a creative person from St. Paul. We grew up in the same basic neighborhood as Charles Schulz. Randy said, I know you haven't been back to St. Paul or your neighborhood for a long time. And this is the key here. Listen to this one. I'm going to take pictures of your high school, the golf course you played on, the place where you went to your movie with the little redheaded girl. All these iconic places that were well known in Charles Schulz's childhood, the house you lived in when you were young, the barber shop that your dad worked at, that your dad owned, all these different places. And Randy said, I'm going to bring pictures and I'll bring them with me when I come so you can have them. Okay, so fast forward to where I was in the story, and we walk in, and the woman at the reception desk says, Evelyn, who was the person Randy talked to on the phone and was kind of the person that handled a lot of Charles Schulz's ideas and processing the proposals that came in. So Evelyn was kind of his right arm and handled a lot of the business part and the ideas, and then would share them with Charles Schulz. And they said, Evelyn and Sparky will be with you in just a moment. And we sat down and Randy grabbed me and said, oh my God, he's going to meet with us. And I'm like, who? And she's like, Sparky. And I'm like, well, who's Sparky? And she said, that's Charles Schulz. And I'm like, oh, well, that's great. That's really, really great. He's going to meet with us. That's pretty amazing. So I hadn't thought a lot about it, but that was pretty special. So we went into Evelyn's office and we sat down, and it was just Randy and I and Evelyn. And we kind of took out some of our examples, and in walked Charles Schulz, larger than life. And it was really a special moment. And we stood up, and Randy said, it's such an honor to meet you. And Charles Schulz humbly said, I'm just a cartoonist. The honor is mine. I've seen your bracelets and I've seen your jewelry and your work. And he said, you have incredible talent, he said, and I'm honored to meet you. And we said, well, thank you, but we're really honored to meet you. And he said, well, let's have a seat. And we sat down, and he said, I read your letter that you sent, and I know you mentioned that you would take pictures of the places that were significant in my life growing up in St. Paul. And he said, would you happen to have brought those pictures with you today? And Randy said, well, yeah, I have them right here. And Charles Schulz said, well, would you mind if we took a little time to look at them? I'd really be interested in seeing them. And for about an hour, Charles Schulz went picture by picture and told stories amazing stories of his memories of all of these different places that were captured in these photos. And it really, really created an incredibly special bond between Charles Schulz and especially Randi and also myself. This first meeting really was incredible. And we have a lot of Charles Schulz stories, and we have a lot of special memories that we were able to share with him. And the relationship that we formed with him was really incredible and really special. And one of the things that we were able to do was share some time with him when he brought his family back. He hadn't been to St. Paul for many, many, many years. And I'm going to tell the barber pole story. He lived above a bar restaurant called O'Gara's in an apartment with his mother and father. He actually shared with us in that first visit to Santa Rosa, he actually shared with us, he told us, in this photo here, this is the room that my mother passed away in. You're in this picture here. And he said, my dad's barber shop was right here. And it's still there, and it's still a barber shop today, and we had pictures of it. And, you know, he talked about how the street lights would keep him up at night and the streetcars, because it would go down. It was a busy street. So he shared all these stories in that first visit. But when he came back to St. Paul, he asked Randi, would you drive my family around? I'm bringing them back for the first time to see all these places that, you know, were important to me growing up. And Randi said, of course, I'll join you for this, you know, for this tour. And so Randi went with Charles Schulz and his family, and they went to all these different sites. And the barber pole story is an incredible one, because when they got to the location of where Charles Schulz's dad's barbershop was, there was a barber pole on the wall. And it was the original barber pole outside of the building. And Charles Schulz says, I remember that barber pole. And that, you know, my dad bought that barber pole. That's pretty special. And so Randi knew it was special to him. And so Randi and one of Charles Schulz's children went into the owner of the barber shop and said, we're wondering if you'd be willing to sell us that barber pole. And there was some discussions, and there were some additional discussions. And in the end, Randi was able to go and get a brand new barber pole for this barber, and get this barber pole for Charles Schulz, take it off the wall, ship it to Charles Schulz. And it meant so much to him, and it just formed even more of a strength and a relationship between Randi and Charles Schulz. And this is one of the things it led to, which is so amazing. If you look at this strip, this is a personalized strip that Charles Schulz, or Sparky, sent to Randi in 1992. And it's hard to see, you can't really zoom in, but it's very Minnesota. It's about the change of the season, and then there's a cactus, which is California, and then there's the barber pole. He actually put the barber pole in this strip and personalized it and wrote to Randi with friendship and sent it to Randi, the original comic strip. And this is something Charles Schulz did, we've heard, for other people as well, when they made an impact on him. And no one probably understood why that barber pole was in there except for Randi. So this is one of the very special things. Here, a year later, on display, as it is still today, at the gift shop, the Snoopy gift shop in Santa Rosa, California. There's a wonderful museum there, by the way, a Charles Schulz museum they created after Charles Schulz passed away. It's an amazing museum. And across from the museum, there's a gift shop. And in the gift shop, this barber pole is on display. And here's a picture of Charles Schulz and Randi by the barber pole. So very, very, very special. And going back to the slide that I showed you, when the city of St. Paul wanted to honor Charles Schulz for his 50 years of cartooning, now you have the history of why Randi had the relationship and TivoliToo had the relationship with Charles Schulz that it did. And so in the year 2000, over 100 Snoopies were created to honor Charles Schulz. And from the year 2000 to 2004, over those 5 years, over 100 statues were made every year. And they would auction off the statues. Some businesses kept the statues for additional dollars that would go to the Charles Schulz Fund, and some gave the statues back to be auctioned. And over $800,000 was raised. And that was incredible. And that was just the first year. And over the 4 years, almost $1.5 million were raised from these statues being auctioned off. And those funds went to create bronze sculptures of the Peanuts characters in the city of St. Paul that are a lasting legacy to Charles Schulz, and that TivoliToo had the honor to create. So again, a very, very touching connection to Charles Schulz. Here are some examples of those bronze sculptures. And in that initial phone call with Randi, before Charles Schulz passed away, Randi said, the city of St. Paul would like to honor you. And Charles Schulz said, I don't want a statue of myself. I just want a statue of my kids, of the characters. And so these statues and these bronze sculptures were something that he also kind of blessed in that phone call with Randi. What was interesting about this is after the success it had in the city of St. Paul, the city of Santa Rosa did it for 4 out of 5 of the next years. And they also raised incredible funds. And it also was a huge project for our company. And also it promoted tourism and artists. And it was something the public could do and take pictures. And it was just a great project. And so we also were able to do bronze sculptures that are in Santa Rosa, California today as a lasting legacy to honor Charles Schulz. So since that time, 2010, we've continued to work with the Peanuts brand. We've done a lot of work for Cedar Fair amusement parks, creating various Peanuts characters in different ways. And we're working on other projects for the Peanuts brand. So again, it was that letter in 1989 that still lives with us today in the work that we do today. And that's the story of Charles Schulz. So those are a couple of really, I think, hopefully, meaningful and I hope there's some real messages in those stories and some real, learnings of, again, different things that you can do along the way to make connections, to get ideas, to create ideas, to form relationships. And so I hope that you enjoyed those stories. I'll now segue to who is Tivoli today, or what is Tivoli today, and how do we talk about ourselves, given that background. So TivoliToo is a design and a theming fabrication company. We were established in 1980. We're located in St. Paul, Minnesota, and we're a dedicated team of artists, fabricators, and professionals. We design and manufacture products ranging from 1/4 inch to 125 feet. We specialize in custom design and theming of a variety of elements, features, and venues. We have expertise in creating indoor and outdoor themed areas, play elements, and retail elements. A strong niche in creating internationally recognized 3D licensed characters. We have the ability to work in a variety of materials and mediums, and we have the ability to design and create a lot of custom painted murals. We do a lot with proprietary designs in sculpture and paint, and we do a lot with molding and multiple piece production. So that's kind of how we talk about ourselves. In-house services, we've got about 40 people on our team, incredibly talented artists that do concept and product ideation, design, illustration, CAD drawings, 3D modeling, sculpting in multiple mediums, CNC routing, 3D printing, mold making, casting, multiple piece production. We work in fiberglass, resin, hard coat, soft coat, metals. We do airbrush and hand painting, incredibly talented team of painters and sculptors. We do a lot with construction and fabrication. We have a welding department with incredible welders, wall covering signage, water feature integration, venue theming, and then of course shipping, installation, project management, and product sourcing. I've mentioned a little bit about our staff, but we have illustrators, graphic designers, industrial designers, digital fabrication specialists, CNC specialists, sculptors, mold makers, spray gun operators, water feature specialists, assemblers, finishers, fabricators, painters. Of course, we have project managers, account coordinators, and office support and a management team. The majority of our business is big stuff today. And this is an important, I think, point to mention too, how Randi's business and how TivoliToo and our business has changed over the years. If you remember back, we had little stuff and big stuff. A lot of the little stuff business back in the late 90s moved overseas. They could do it more cost effectively. The sculpting skills were improving, and a lot of the little stuff business was going away. So it was very fortunate for TivoliToo that we started doing big stuff. And big stuff is really the majority of our business today. We still can do all of the smaller things, but it's a very small portion of our business. And the majority of our business is what used to be called big stuff. And here it is, 1 foot to 60 foot, or really it's 125 feet now, indoor, outdoor theme products, etc. All the things I talked about previously. So this is really our core business today. With this core business and with the incredible talent of our team, we have been fortunate, and again, this is another incredible lesson. We are able to do what we do in so many different product segments. And there have been times over the 40 years or the 20 years, especially since I've been working with TivoliToo, where some of these segments aren't as strong or aren't doing as much as other segments. But we've been able to use the processes and the talents and the skills of the people we have to do what we do in other product segments. So as you look at this, this is important to note that we work in venue, we work on venue and event elements. We work in retail restaurant. We work on fixtures, facades, and signage for retail stores and restaurants, indoor and outdoor play elements and play areas, photo op greeters and statues, water park, pool, play features, bronze and faux bronze sculptures, mini golf course themed elements and props, trade show booths, multiple unit production and statue events, murals, and painted graphics. So we work in a lot of different segments. And here are some of the market segments we work in. Again, this is really critical. We're not just focused on one area. We do amusement parks, resorts, water parks, retail and restaurant spaces, stadiums, sports venues, cruise ships, mini golf courses, healthcare facilities, shopping centers, trade show and exhibits, city and corporate venues, statue events, museums, airports, zoos, libraries, schools, child care facilities, nonprofit organizations. So as you can see, it's the diversity of what we do, and it's the ability to do what we do in so many different places and venues and different industries and market segments that has allowed us to be in business for 40 years. These are really tough times. I'm going to talk a little more about that in a little bit. Some of these segments are really having extreme troubles. Others are having less troubles. It's a very tough time for everyone, obviously, But what we're trying to do is work on different areas that maybe have opportunity right now, knowing that some of them aren't as viable. But the fortunate thing is, again, because of the skills, the talents, the capabilities, and the types of things we do and we can make, we can work in all these different segments. Here's just some examples of our clients. I've shared a lot with you. I've shared a lot of them with you already. But we pride ourselves on working with nonprofit organizations and obviously, profit, organizations for profit or public companies, Fortune 500 companies, high profile companies. We also pride ourselves on working with very small companies and very large. The local cupcake shop, we made a 10-foot cupcake to put on the rooftop of the cupcake store, just a one store venue, so we work with a lot of different types of clients, again, which is really critical to our success and to our ability to have still, been in business after 40 years. We wrote this mission and vision 20 years ago, maybe even a little more than that. And it still holds true today. Our mission is to create really cool stuff that wows people in an environment that is fun for our employees and our clients. And our vision is to be recognized as the best at giving our clients what they want while taking on a broader scope of projects that provide new opportunities for our employees. And this is really critical, and I've already kind of shared this with you. Our clients have taken us a lot of different directions. We form good relationships with our clients, and we do what they need to have done. And they trust us, and that's taken us in a lot of the different directions that we've shared with you. So this is kind of the fast part.
Yes. Oh, is it fast? Okay, because we want to make sure we get to questions. So if you can bump through this in like 5, I know there's like a lot more pages, but yeah, quickly bump through because we want to ask you some questions. Okay, Hart?
Okay, we'll go fast. So really quickly, I've told all the stories and we will move to just examples of our work. Amusement parks, here, I'm just gonna fly through them. This is some of the work we did at Nickelodeon Universe. That bench has sound and lights and motion. And here's some of the stuff we've done at American Dream. Here's some examples of some cruise ship, mini golf course, kids play areas. Here's some example at resorts. We've done some Aquanic themed resort work. We've done Atlantis Resort. Again, just showing you all the different places. Margaritaville, we're doing these giant flip-flops for Margaritaville resorts. Great Wolf Resorts has been a great client. They were a great client for many years, doing a lot of different venues in their resorts, a lot of different themed elements. Vail, we created all these characters for Vail, and then we did all these different themed elements with signage, photo ops, greeters at the Vail Ski Resort. McDonald's commissioned us about 5 years ago to recreate Ronald to make him less creepy and more friendly, but he's a clown with red hair and a white face, so we could only do so much, but that was quite a process and quite a project. Some international retail work for Nickelodeon, the M&M store. Again, a lot of different things along the way. Airports, themed retail stores and airports, some trade show examples, some children's museum examples, some traveling museum exhibits that we've done. Shopping centers, we created a whole holiday experience for the Mall of America with oversized nostalgic toys and nutcrackers, 11-foot. Crayola experience, we've done 4 or 5 different venues for Crayola in different cities and different malls. Angry Birds mini golf, as I shared with you earlier. Look for that online because it just opened today. And then Minnesota Twins, bronze character sculptures, Target Field, Target Stadium.
Hold on.
This was
yeah, you got to talk about this. They got to talk about
this
that
one. So
yeah,
the Zamboni was really, okay, the Zamboni is really an amazing project because Target came to us and they wanted something special for a special event at the XL Energy Center where the Minnesota Wild play hockey. And they needed it in 3 weeks. And this was probably at least an 8-week project. And they needed it for this event. And it was a Zamboni, and it was an operational Zamboni. And they said it has to still work, and it has to be able to, you know, coat the ice. And we want people to be able to sit in it. And we want it to look like a big red shopping basket. So we said the only possible way we could do this project in that timeline is if we had the Zamboni delivered to us. So we brought it to our shop. They brought it to our shop, and we were able to drive it around in our shop. And it's operational. So we had to really measure and make sure all the different sections could open, and it had to remain operational, but still look like the big red shopping basket. So that was a really unique project. MetLife Stadium, we've done some sculptures for that stadium, again, with our Peanuts relationship. Romero Brito, who's an artist, this is a giant bear we did outside of a soccer stadium. I showed you the Miami Marlins. And again, here's some healthcare. This was a dental office. We did a 40-foot Noah's Ark with giant characters. Here's some more work we did at Cardinal Glennon. 24-foot submarine, the train. We turned the atrium into a transportation hub. We also did a major project at the Golisano Children's Hospital in Southwest Florida, where we did indoor and outdoor greeters. We created characters on every floor. And then some corporate examples. A lot of work for Target. Chanel, we did their lion for their training center. And then a variety of events for Nickelodeon, for McDonald's, for Target, etc. And so with that, I'm not going to dwell on this is kind of how we talk about ourselves. These are our selling points. Basically, the things I've talked about in our presentation. I think for time purposes, would you like me to move on, Patrick?
Yeah,
okay.
we're probably going to wrap up in 10 minutes, so I think we'd love to maybe ask you questions.
Okay, so I'm just going to say one of the things we did, we started creating face shields. When you say what's next, we did face shields with our equipment, so we could be we could keep our employees working. We're still doing them today, along with our themed elements. Really a unique thing. We figured out we could do these, and we were able to get an exemption from the government to keep our shop operating, even though we weren't an essential business. We became an essential business because we started the face shields servicing the medical industry. So you never know. I'm just going to go through these really quick because these are the lessons, and then we'll take questions. You never know who you might be working with. Again, I've worked with my sister for 20 years. We have very different backgrounds. We never thought we'd be working together. You never know where you might end up. I went into brand management, marketing, and now I'm in a theming company. You know, I worked on different products. Randi started in school as an artist, had a jewelry business, and now has a theming company. And you never know what idea may impact your life. I would say if you look at the whole story and everything I've said, when Randi decided to change, to come up with the idea from a jewelry store to theme charm bracelets, that really moved her out of just being a retail jewelry store. And then when our dad said Monopoly characters, do a character charm bracelet, that really moved us to doing work with characters. And again, jewelry to a 125-foot slide, a 125-foot slime, I should say. So that's the story of Tivoli. That's the story of the business. And so questions.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kelly, why don't you take it away?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to pull it up on my phone because my Google Docs are not happy right now. Okay. So obviously with 40 years under your belt, like that's a really amazing time for any company to be in business. But like knowing what has happened like over the course of those 40 years, excuse me. Oh my gosh. What are some surprising things that that you kind of run into when you're describing themed fabrication that people don't understand?
Randy, do you want to?
You can take it, Hart.
Okay. Well, you know, I think people don't really think about the hours and hours and hours and hours of planning and designing, and then actually the hand labor. I mean, this is skilled
That's
craftsmanship.
just what I would have said. Yeah.
This is artistry. This is, I mean, incredibly talented people creating these amazing elements. And so I think the general public, if you will, could never imagine, from a safety standpoint, from an aesthetic standpoint, from a durability standpoint, from a structure standpoint, everything that goes in to creating even just, a 6-foot SpongeBob sculpture.
Right?
I keep muting myself because I start coughing and I don't want to be the.
I will add one thing. I will add one thing as well. When you're dealing with IPs like Nickelodeon or Peanuts or Disney or Rovio, there's a whole additional level of integrity, brand integrity, and review processes, and needing to take into account so many other variables and factors. So that adds a whole nother level and dimension and complexity to doing some of these things as well, to kind of add on to that question.
So sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, that kind of actually brings up a really good point, because I'm sure there are differences in designing for theme parks versus, other outside projects. And I think the scale is probably part of that. But like, there are regular sculptures that you see when you're driving down the road, and then there's sculptures that are like photo op sculptures that people want to go and like sit on and climb on and be on, and then take their pictures with. So, what are some, I guess, what are those challenges like? How, how
You mean
might
like
one
the responsibilities of that, like structurally and durability wise, indoor, outdoor? Also, is it going to be touchable or not touchable? Like those are all variables. That also kind of ties into what kind of materials you use, what kind of engineering you have to put into it, what the end material you use for the clear coat for UV protection and things like that. So every single project has a whole list of questions and responsibilities that come with it that have to be supported in order to provide a product that has long-term durability and longevity on a lot of different levels. Does that answer that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's perfect. Oh, Ella. Ariel Spencer says, what sort of research is involved in your process, like for the children's hospital theming? How do you determine what will be most enjoyable, and helpful to healing for the kids in those age ranges? Because, there's got to be a crazy age range.
Yeah. Should I do this, Hart? Just
Sure.
to say, we've spent a lot of time. People have been really, really supportive. A lot of our clients to help to educate us in what the sensitivities are from a bacterial issue all the way to distraction levels, and so that's been really helpful. And I think we've learned a lot over the years on where the significant like in the important things to provide to the hospitals. The age range thing, especially if you're focusing on children's hospitals, has also been a big challenge, because you want it to support the 5-year-old and the 18-year-old, and so that ends up being another challenge in how you design things and what you come up with, so that it doesn't become too juvenile or too young, but also not so sophisticated that the younger kids can't engage in it. So I think that's, you know, a big part of the responsibility that we have, along with the infectious control issues with what kinds of materials you use and what kinds of chemicals they use to support those, to keep things, you know, bacteria free.
And just to add really quickly to Randy's comment, we've had a lot of input from doctors and nurses. We've had a lot of calls together, going through concepts and designs and getting their input based on, you know, really using their expertise and their knowledge, and you know, definitely taking into consideration that it's a different kind of environment, so we need to do things that work in that environment. So we're kind of looking to them for that expertise as well.
Great.
Patrick,
I have a question. Maybe about two more questions, and then we'll land the plane. So right now we know that our industry is a bit suffering a little bit just in regards to jobs, and we have audiences here that are watching that are trying to do things maybe on their own a little bit. And you know, so what type of people are you looking for when you're hiring, and then what can people do now to prepare to break into scenic fabrication? What kind of skills should they be honing in on?
Do you want to talk about this, Hart, or should I?
You can start.
I can start by saying I think the biggest thing for us is the diversity in the person's talent. I mean, it sort of goes both ways. Sometimes it's really great when someone has an expertise in a certain area, for us as business owners, because then we can, you know, depend on those people to do, let's say their expertise or their passion is painting. And so that's really important. But right now, the way the world is, in some ways, the diversity of skill set is also really important, because that way, if there's a project running through and it gets bottleneck in a certain area, we can move our employees around to support one another, so that there's an even flow of the work running through, and it's not getting bottlenecked in one area. So I would say, to a certain extent, diversity is a really, of talent or of interest or passion, is an important, I think, an important thing for people that are looking for jobs right now. I don't know if you'd agree with that or not, Hart, but.
Yeah, I would, and I just kind of add to that as you can see from a lot of the examples or things that we talked about today, it's forming that relationship and the connection. And so if you have experience that really relates to something that the company you're targeting or you're trying to you know, get a job at, if you have that background and that experience, that's great. But if you can find some way to connect or show that the skills and the talents you have really are applicable in a unique way, that's really important, to kind of break through the reality that maybe multiple people are going for the same thing.
And a willingness to learn, you know, to be open to other types of things that that you might. It's good for you too, because you get the opportunity to learn more things, but it's also good for the owner, because then we can utilize the talent that you bring in different areas of our workflow.
That's great. Great advice. So Charlie, to wrap things up for a final question, and first off, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to the audience. This is great. We haven't had a scenic fabrication company come on, so it was great for them to hear your story and to know that there are places outside of Orlando and LA where there's things to be done with theme entertainment, which is fantastic. So we know it's a really challenging time in the economy, and there's a lot of people looking for work. I mean, that's to say the least. There's a lot of other stuff going on. Do you have any parting words of wisdom from all of your, decades of experience of how to kind of get through these times? And I'll throw it to Hart to start off with.
I think you have to really look at things with an open mind and just try to see if there's any unique opportunities out there that maybe no one's really captured yet. And are there things that you can do or something you can bring to an employer or to a company that either no one else can or that you've thought of that could add value to that company? I really think it's about positioning yourself uniquely and really trying to get in there and say, this is why I'm the right fit, or this is the value I can bring that nobody else possibly can. I think that's, it is definitely a tough time, and it's just being persistent, I think. Like many of the examples, Tivoli has had a lot of ups and downs along the way, and it's been being persistent, looking for the next opportunity, looking for new opportunities, looking for different directions.
Hart, sorry, Randy, how about you?
I would say I agree with what Hart said, but I would also add that it really is about relationships. It's about the person that you are and the message that the way you live your life and the message that you send out to everybody in professional and personal about how you care about things, your dedication, your willingness, your strengths, and really the value in the people around you and the relationships around you that you never know, like Hart said, what could happen. And so you have to, look deep and try hard and try to just not give up. And I know, especially right now with what's going on in the world, that's a really hard thing to do, to wake up in the morning and, use your mental management and try to look at the little nuggets of positive things and try to pursue those. And in the end, be kind, be good, and don't give up. I think that's really my, the way I live my life and the way that I think, at this time in the world, people, hopefully can find some success and, and some opportunity.
And I want to just say to that, because I think this is really important. If you think about the story of TivoliToo, it was those kind of unique calculated risks or the different things that were done. And then let me, like Randy decided, okay, I'm a jewelry store, but I'm going to try to do charm bracelets. Okay. That was something totally different. And then she decided, because of our dad's idea, I'm going to go to Parker Brothers. I mean, what 20-something person would spend 3 weeks calling every possible person at Parker Brothers to get somebody to listen to her? And that Monopoly charm bracelet really started something. Not being afraid when Rainforest came and said, can you do a 30-foot frog? The letter to Charles Schultz, you never know what thing it's going to be that's going to be the difference in moving forward on something.
So just try to think of something unique and different that's going to catch people's attention, that's going to make them think about you and wonder what else you have to offer. I think that's it. It's the uniqueness and the kind of twist to what you do to reach out that makes you a little bit different. You're the colored paper envelope versus the white envelope that you send.
That sounds like it's hard to top that advice. That was fantastic. Well, Hart and Randy, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time. This is great to hear your history. You were my first thought in my head when we thought about fabrication. I'm really glad you took the time and worked through our technology
Yes.
to come on.
Well, thank you so much too for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
No
and good luck to everybody.
Yes.
It was a pleasure.
All right.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye for now, everybody.
Good luck.